I sat in my office on the 19th floor of Cascade Tower, watching the Puget Sound shimmer under the late morning sun. Ferries cut across the bay while, across the street, employees streamed into the glimmering Stratus Logic headquarters, unaware that nearly every internal system they relied on, from cloud sync to biometric access, ran on code written by the woman they once discarded. 5 years ago, I was just 26, the youngest backend engineer in StratusLogic's Advanced Systems division. "This is fiction," Martin Galloway had sneered, lounging in his imported leather chair, thumbing through my architecture brief. "You're telling me this dynamic node model, cooked up by someone barely out of grad school, can cut processing loads nearly in half?" I kept my tone calm. It achieved a 67% improvement in scaled testing. "It's real, and it's deployable." He scoffed. "Noel, I don't need fantasy numbers from a pet project. I need proven frameworks, not sandbox experiments." My lead, Darius Monroe, stepped in. "Martin, her code beat our production system on every performance metric." "Legacy takes decades to build," he snapped. "Not weekends." "Miss Tran," he never said my full name correctly, "focus on your assigned backlog or clean out your desk." Crushed, I walked out gripping my laptop, pulse pounding. 2 weeks later, it got worse. One late night, I got a system notification. My internal credentials hadn't been revoked. Curious, I logged in. Deep in a shared directory labeled Ops Revamp, I found my entire design spec, now bearing Darius Monroe's name on every slide. They had stolen it, but they never understood it. What they launched was a mangled, incomplete version, missing fault tolerance, overloaded with fragile dependencies, a ticking time bomb. And it's still counting down. I could have reported them, I could have sued, but I chose something better. I rebuilt everything, clean, fortified, and fully mine. Today, StratusLogic pays a premium for my upgraded licensing suite just to keep their backend operational. And they still don't know who owns the rights. Not yet. I left StratusLogic the very next morning, submitted a short resignation, pursuing personal goals, and walked out with nothing but my laptop and a provisional patent application tucked quietly into the system. No one asked questions. No one imagined the youngest engineer on staff had already protected the blueprint. I moved into a windowless studio in Capitol Hill, Seattle. $8 noodles, skip weekends, coded through New Year's fireworks with headphones buried deep in debug logs. My prototype became a platform. My platform became Synapse Grid, a living, learning, digital architecture for enterprise operations. Investors brushed me off at first. Some said I lacked founder presence. Others asked where the real CTO was. But numbers speak louder than faces. When I onboarded our third client, a supply chain firm who cut latency by 42%, suddenly, people listened. That's when Ardent Labs was born. My company, my terms. We licensed the tech to multinationals, ironically, including StratusLogic. Every API request, access update, and data flag they trigger now flows through the same system Martin once mocked. The difference? Now they pay for it. And I never had to argue. I just outbuilt them. Then came the turning point. At a closed-door tech showcase in San Francisco, I met Elena Rivera, a strategist known for betting big on underdog founders with disruptive platforms. She didn't skim my pitch. She looked up, eyes locked on mine, and said, "Finally, someone who built the future instead of begging to join it." She took notes, asked sharp questions. "How does the Lattice network handle distributed load spikes?" Elena pressed. We talked until the janitors began dimming the lights and locking up the venue. When we finally stood to leave, she shook my hand and said, "This is brilliant. Why hasn't anyone built this yet?" I smiled. "They tried. StratusLogic rolled out a stripped-down clone last quarter." She paused, her brow lifted. "Wait, that was you?" I nodded. "That was their knockoff. This is mine." Elena let out a short, razor-edged laugh. "That train wreck took out half their innovation team. Do you have any idea how many enterprise firms are trying to rebuild what you've already delivered? I did. I was counting on it. 5 million for 22% equity, she said, not even blinking, and full access to my enterprise network. 10 days later, Ardent Labs was incorporated. Everything shifted overnight. With Elena Rivera's backing, we were in front of CTOs who used to delete our cold emails. Her network pulled open doors I didn't even know existed. Within 60 days, we signed our first major enterprise client, a Pacific Northwest healthcare system scrambling to replace outdated middleware. Within 5 months, we were fielding inquiries from insurance, logistics, and telecom firms, many of whom had recently dumped Stratus Logic. Synapse Grid performed with surgical precision. I stayed invisible. On paper, I was Lena Morgan, using my middle name and my grandmother's surname. Trademark filings, product releases, even our pitch decks, all bore her name. StratusLogic never connected the dots. I didn't need revenge headlines. Their own mistake had gutted their innovation division, triggered lawsuits, and sent clients fleeing. Their stock tumbled. Meanwhile, Synapse Grid became the benchmark. Then, one crisp Monday morning, an email landed in my inbox. Subject: Strategic Collaboration Inquiry. Dear Ms. Morgan, I represent StratusLogic Inc., a global tech firm currently restructuring its enterprise infrastructure. We've been monitoring Ardent Labs with great interest and would like to initiate a conversation regarding possible integration. Sincerely, Martin Galloway, CEO. I read it 3 times. Every word. Savored it. They weren't reaching out. They were unraveling. Elena was the first to flag the name in our CRM. She called me before I'd even finished reading. Tell me you're taking the meeting, she said, half laughing. Oh, I am, I replied, staring across Elliott Bay from my penthouse office atop Columbia Center. But not this week. Elena whistled. Cold. I love it. I let them wait 14 days. Long enough for whispers to turn into speculation. Stratus Logic stock dropped another 12%. Analysts muttered about mismanagement. Martin issued vague statements about strategic overhauls. It was delicious. Then, finally, I replied, brief, polite, open to a meeting, on my terms. They would come to me. The morning they arrived, I hit the rooftop gym before sunrise. Every deadlift a reminder of how far I'd come since that humiliating meeting 5 years ago. Back then, I was dismissible. Now, I was the architect of their survival. Mr. Morgan, my assistant, called over the intercom. Mr. Galloway and his team are here. I slipped on a tailored navy blazer, the same shade I wore the day I walked out of Stratus Logic, only now custom-stitched in Milan, and made my way down the glass corridor to our largest conference suite. Let the reckoning begin. He entered first, same swagger, same $1,000 tailoring, but the eyes gave it away. That trademark certainty had thinned. Miss Morgan, he said, extending his hand. Appreciate your time. Behind him, Darius Monroe, and of course, Aaron Patel, eyes cool and unreadable. The same people who dismissed me, who white-labeled my work, who watched me walk out with barely a nod. None of them blinked. 6 years, a different name, and measurable success have a funny way of erasing memory. Please, I said, gesturing to the chairs across the table. I remained standing a moment longer than necessary before taking the head seat. Calm, measured. Let them wonder. Let them squirm. Martin laced his fingers. Let's be direct. We need modernization. Synapse Grid's track record speaks for itself. I nodded. Just once. Then let's talk about what that'll cost you. My voice was flat, almost bored. Is that so? Then let me ask, how well do you actually understand the system you're trying to buy into? He sat straighter, launched into a well-rehearsed string of jargon, neural workflows, load orchestration, predictive failover, buzzwords meant to impress shareholders, not engineers. Aaron gave the occasional nod beside him. I recognized her touch all over the pitch. When he finally stopped, I smiled. Sharp, quiet. Impressive vocabulary, though I couldn't help but notice no mention of your company's last modernization effort. The temperature shifted. Martin's smile tightened. That project was mishandled. We acted on poor recommendations. Erin suddenly found her stylus very interesting. Poor recommendations? I tapped my iPad and brought up a file. You mean this rollout? The one that hemorrhaged 30 million in losses and collapsed in under a month? Erin's head snapped up. How did you... Enough, Martin snapped. And just like that, I had them exactly where I wanted. If you've enjoyed watching Noelle play the long game, just wait until the mask slips. Subscribe now so you don't miss the moment they realize exactly who's sitting across the table. He recalibrated, voice softer now. That's why we're here. We've evolved, and Synapse Grid is clearly the industry benchmark. I rose and walked to the window, the Seattle skyline glimmering in the morning light. Beyond the water, the Stratus Logic Tower stood, a monument to what used to be. Tell me something, I said quietly, watching the ferries glide across Elliott Bay. Whatever happened to the developer who built the system you tried to replicate? The one whose work was buried? Silence. I'm not sure what you mean, Martin said, too quickly. I turned, met his gaze fully. No, let me remind you. A junior engineer, female, proposed a dynamic backend model you called a science fair project. Ring any bells? Erin froze, the color draining from her face. Darius looked away, but Martin stared now. Really? How do you... I returned to my seat, pressed a small button beneath the table. The wall screen lit up behind me. There it was, the original Synapse Grid framework, annotated, tested, my work, and stamped clearly at the top. Noelle T. Tran. I let the silence stretch a moment longer. Hello again, Mr. Galloway. Remember me? The immature junior developer you shut down? Chaos. Erin dropped her stylus. One advisor swore under his breath. Martin lurched up, his face drained of color. This can't be real, he muttered, eyes wide with disbelief. I folded my hands calmly on the table. No, Martine, this is very real. And more than that, this is justice. He pointed, stammering. You're not Lena Morgan? I smiled, serene and unbothered. No, but I made her, and you made me necessary. That's my middle name, I said smoothly, and my grandmother's maiden name. But you knew me as Noelle Tran, the junior developer you told to stop pretending she was building something real. We'll take legal action, Martin snapped, but even he heard the strain in his voice. That system was built under our roof, under our payroll. Incorrect, I cut in, calm and clear. Synapse Grid was patented 6 weeks before I ever walked into that boardroom. You never thought to check the USPTO filings, did you? I leaned forward just slightly, smiling. Oh, wait. Your infrastructure's still too outdated to retrieve federal records before 2020. I rose, adjusted the lapel of my blazer, and walked slowly to the far end of the table. But that's not really why you're here, is it? You're here because Synapse Grid is powering your competitors, because your Fortune 500 clients are walking away, and because with every quarter you stall, your grip on the industry slips further. He clenched his jaw. Name your price. Price? I let out a quiet laugh. Mr. Galloway, you've misunderstood. I'm not selling to you. I slid a thick folder across the table, watched his hand tremble as he opened it. I'm buying you. Ardent Labs has already acquired 42% of your voting shares. At current projections, we'll cross controlling interest before the quarter ends. His face went pale. He rifled through the documents, hands shaking. This is revenge. No, I replied. This is business. Your company is bloated, outdated, and stalled. We specialize in turning companies like yours into something future-ready. Then I smiled faintly. That it also happens to be poetic justice? Just a bonus. The board won't approve this, he whispered, desperation setting in. They already have. He tapped the control panel embedded in the table. The wall screen glowed to life behind me, displaying digital signatures, board approvals, and a finalized motion in green. You were the last to know. Erin sank back, the fight draining from her posture. Darius looked away. "What happens to us?" she asked quietly. "That depends," I said, settling into my chair again. Ardent Labs retains talent, but we begin with a full audit, especially on how senior leadership treats innovation and whose voices they silence. Martin looked stricken, his hands limp at his sides. You can't do this." I stood slowly, adjusting my blazer with care. "I already did. Security will escort you out. HR will follow up before the end of the day." At the door, I paused. "Oh, and Martin?" I turned back just slightly and gave him the same slight, dismissive smile he gave me 5 years ago. "Your office has an amazing view. I think I'll keep it." The room emptied in silence. My phone buzzed. I answered without looking. "Elena." "How did it feel?" Her voice was breathless with excitement. I looked out across downtown Seattle, watching from my glass office as Martin Galloway and his team were guided through the lobby. "Better than I ever imagined." "And the stock?" "Up 12%, Elena replied. "Wall Street loves the idea of Ardent reviving Stratus Logic." "Good," I said. "Schedule the press conference. It's time for Lena Morgan to step out of the shadows." "You're really going public with everything?" she asked. I looked at my name on the office door. "Noelle Tran," I said softly. It's time they remembered it. I turned away from the window, where the Space Needle gleamed in the fading light of a Seattle afternoon. "Not everything," I said. "This was never about revenge. It's about momentum, about replacing old habits with real progress, about an idea once called too premature becoming the infrastructure of the future." Exactly. The next morning, I stepped up to the podium with the Seattle skyline rising behind me, announcing Ardent Labs' full acquisition of Stratus Logic, Inc. I wore the same navy blazer I had on the day Martin Galloway dismissed me 5 years earlier. No one else noticed, but I did. The press asked about my identity, why I chose to lead under a pseudonym. Why the secrecy? I gave the polished answers: product over personality, innovation over ego. They didn't need to hear about the instant noodles, the cold apartment, or the voice in my head that whispered maybe Martin was right, because success silences everything else. 30 days later, StratusLogic was fully integrated into Ardent Labs. As promised, we evaluated the team fairly. Some stayed, some grew. Erin Patel now manages compliance, methodical, cautious. She was never a visionary, but she understood structure. As for Martin Galloway, he retired. His old corner office, it's now my secondary workspace. Quiet, clean, symbolic. A reminder that underestimated ideas can reshape industries. Sometimes at night, I still open my first SynapseScript blueprint, the one they dismissed. I trace the early logic trees, the color-coded diagrams. They don't bring back anger. They bring back purpose. Today, the Stratus Logic building remains, but it bears a different name: Ardent Labs. Thousands relied daily on the platform they once rejected. And in the inside pocket of my old blazer, I keep a folded sheet of paper, my resignation letter from all those years ago, scrawled on the back in faded ink. Remember this moment. It's not the end. And it wasn't. It was the beginning. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to the full story, not just the rise, but the silence, the setbacks, and the long nights no one ever sees. I didn't set out to become a symbol or a success story. I just wanted to prove to them and to myself that I was never the weak link in the room. I'd love to hear what you would have done in my place. Have you ever been dismissed, underestimated, told to stay quiet while someone else took the credit? Drop a comment. I'll read them all, because this isn't just my story. It's ours. And if you've ever shelved an idea because someone told you it wasn't good enough, take it off that shelf, rebuild it, refine it, protect it. Don't wait for permission to become who you already are. If you believe stories like this need to be told, stories where quiet resilience becomes quiet power, subscribe to the channel, support more voices like mine finally stepping forward. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't a headline. It's living long enough to become the person they said you'd never be. And letting the whole world see you do it.